Inshallah, let's start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ba'd. Welcome to this session. First, Eid Mubarak to everybody. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept the good deeds of these first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And good deeds come in different type, right? The charity, the prayers, the fasting, and the education is an important subject, like today's session that will introduce us to the concept of trust. A smart way to invest here and the hereafter is the title of today's session. And we have with us Brother Mirza from Northern Virginia, and Brother Sheikh Yusri from Halifax, and Brother Hisham Abadi here from Calgary, and I'm your host, Nuruddin Burka from Calgary here. So just as a matter of quick introduction, this event was put together by Horizon Academy Institute. Horizon Academy Institute is a nonprofit charitable organization that work in area of education and leadership training. We work on area of intellectual aspects of education, spiritual skill, al-maharat, and part of the areas that we focus on, we put together workshops that promote certain subjects, and we have done many series that usually last 12 weeks. And recently we started experimenting with short sessions, high-powered sessions that bring some concept to the community for the purpose of actually bringing this concept to reality. Hence the importance of today's talk. Dr. Hussam Kinawi, who's a long-term board member of Horizon Academy Institute and is a co-founder of an IT security company here in Alberta. Because he looks after fundraising event for Horizon Academy, he has been after us to educate the community on the concept of waqf or Islamic trust. He went and donated some shares of his company, but we don't have the waqf established, so we have the donation, but we need the waqf. And we wanted to seize this opportunity to actually bring some education in this aspect. So I don't want to dwell anymore on the introduction, but that's the context of today's session. And I wanted to open the session, inshallah, with having Brother Mirza and Brother Sheikh Yusri and Hisham to talk to us a little bit about a few aspects on the concept of trust. And so let's start by asking, what is a trust? And I'll let you take this anywhere you like. I know Brother Mirza have some slides, so just let me know when you're ready to show those slides, and we'll be happy to put them on the screen, inshallah. Brother Mirza, Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Brother Nuruddin. And we don't need the slides right now. I think we will have them when we talk about endowment. Talking about trust, sometimes we think of trust or similar instruments that these are Western kind of innovations. But I beg to differ and say that Islam is the first organized religion which has introduced the concept of waqf and a trust. And I have a master degree thesis which proves the point that we, the Muslims, introduced the concept of trust to UK. And historically, we have seen them in our Iraq, many kinds of endowments and works were made. So what is a trust? Trust basically is a document which describes what are the wishes of the creator, that is the trustor. So any one of us, we can create a trust, and we can say that this trust is created to help poor people for education or food or free clinic, whatever you may want to think of. So you need a person who would like to create a trust. Then we need a trustee. Now the person who is creating the trust can also act as a trustee, but for certain trusts you need a trustee which is outside the person who is creating it. And then you define who are the beneficiaries. So there are two kinds of trust. The first one we can talk about is Waqful Ahli or Waqful Al-Ulad, which is more like a family trust. And the second kind is Waqful Khairi, which is a charitable trust. And depending on the need and depending on who is creating it, we can have both kinds of trust which we can create. Today, I'm assuming that we are going to discuss Waqful Khairi, which is for the welfare of the community. And the setting up a trust is rather easy. You can use an attorney, but if it's our own trust, all we need to do is to define the purpose of the trust, who is going to be the trustee or mutawalli, and who are the beneficiary, and sign the document in the presence of witnesses, or preferably to have it notarized. So that is very simple. Now we can use an attorney and follow the rules laid out by the province, and it will be structured and it can be registered with the province. Now, as you already have Horizon as education, as a tax-exempt entity, charitable entity, that could serve as an endowment as well. So you simply take the donation of the shares which one Beverly brother has already contributed, and create a separate account within your books and say this particular amount is endowment which cannot be sold or touched, or the principal cannot be used, but the profit from that principal will only be used for supporting the charitable activities. Now, you can have a separate entity if you wish. So usually I suggest that until the endowment which is created within Horizon grows up to about $500,000, just to avoid the cost, you don't have to have a separate entity. But once you reach to that number, I think having a separate entity, separate board is useful. Here, we have something called a supporting organization, which I'm sure in Canada exists. I couldn't find it quickly today, but I'm sure it exists. So supporting organization is the way to go. So you have Horizon, you create Horizon supporting organization. That organization exists only to support Horizon. It cannot give any money to anybody else. And the board of Horizon can appoint or will appoint the majority of the board of the Horizon supporting entity. So while legally it is a separate entity, it files a separate tax return. It has a separate federal tax exemption number, but it is legally protecting the assets of Horizon as a separate entity, while it is only existing to support the activities of the Horizon Academy. And that we found to be a best structure, because otherwise, if you have a separate entity, they can separate and take the assets anytime. So it is a protection for you to create a supporting organization if something like that exists. If it doesn't exist, then you create one in which the board is appointed by the Horizon. And that way you have protection that they will not separate. I'll stop here, and maybe there are questions or other speakers can speak.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Yusri, could you come back on a matter of more understanding of the concept of waqf from an Islamic perspective? Could you elaborate from what Brother Mirza have said?
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبع هداه. جزاكم الله خير for the invitation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in this session and accept from us all. Sincere thanks to Brother Nuruddin, Brother Hussam for organizing this, for this great work. For my brother Mirzan, I'm very humbled to be with you today. So before going to the waqf, I just wanted to mention, answer the point that Brother Mirza just referred to. To the best of my knowledge, the equivalent of the supporting organization in US, in Canada, they call it foundation, which is this kind of organization, kind of umbrella to the society of a charity. And it just does have the ability to embark on business activity, investment, and trust, and all this stuff. And it will only be supporting these charities. To the best of my knowledge, they call it here foundation, which is somehow related to the charity and play similar role that the supporting organization does in US. However, if we have someone also from technical perspective, he can maybe give more details on that. So going back to the question about the sadaqah and the waqf and sadaqah jariyah from an Islamic perspective, and how can we understand the concept of waqf in Islam. As Brother Mirza just mentioned, Islam introduced the concept of waqf, and it was not known before before Islam. Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, said that Muslims, they are the one started this waqf, and no one known to mankind before did or practiced this concept. So quickly, we have three terms we want to allude to and make sure that we differentiate between the three terms. We have the sadaqah, term of sadaqah. We have the term of the sadaqah jariyah, and we have the term of al-waqf, or endowment or trust. And then we have the fourth term, actually I would like also to add it, which is the wasiyah, the will. And four of them, they are kind of related. And I wanted to give some points to be able to differentiate between these concepts and make sure that we understand the concept of the waqf from an Islamic perspective. So in Arabic and in Islam, we have this, and in Balagha in particular, we have this thing that sometimes we have some terms that is general terms, and some they are specific. However, when we use these general terms in a context, it may include all other terms, and vice versa. Like we have two terms, even they are specific terms, like al-Islam and al-Iman. If we use both of them in the same context, Islam will mean something and Iman will refer to something else. But if we use one of them separately, it will include both things. So I'm referring to now a sadaqah, which is a general term referred to all the good deeds. Any good deed in Islam called sadaqah. تبسمك في وجه أخيك صدقة. So the term sadaqah in particular is a general term, refers to all the good deeds that please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then it is specifically used in another context to the giving charity or financial giving charity for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the general term of giving charity in Islam, under which we have different types and different things. So then the other term, which is the sadaqah jariyah, which is a little bit specific. So the general term is sadaqah, and then we have the sadaqah jariyah, which is the second referred to that any good deed that does have this long-term impact on a long-term basis. And it also encompasses different things, financial, I would say charity, giving charity financially, and even other good deeds may fall under the term of صدقة جارية, like خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. The best of you, those they have they have learned the Quran and they teach the Quran to others. Like education, like so many other things that is not necessarily financially considered a financial support or giving a financial support to anyone. It is also considered a sadaqah jariyah. However, in the context that we are talking about right now, which is the sadaqah and sadaqah jariyah, or talking about financial aspects here, it refers to these good deeds and this charity, the financial transactions, the financial support that does have this long-term impact. And this is also the general term of the sadaqah al-jariyah. This encompasses so many things: building wells, homes, schools, hospitals, even sponsoring kids for education and adults, and scholarships, and to give a family a project to, to start a business or something, and in economically, they refer to this term of sadaqah jariyah, the equivalent of this in I would say the sustainable development, something around this line, the sustainable development in general, or this sector in the NGOs, you can refer to as the sadaqah jariyah. And this is the second term. So the first term is sadaqah, which is the general term. Then we have the sadaqah jariyah, which means that it does have this long, the impact is on long-term basis. And then we come to the third term, which is the waqf, or the endowment, which is the trust, which is different. It is not just the general term that encompasses different things, it is a system. So the waqf is a whole system. As Brother Mirza was referring to, there's a whole system with many rules and regulations and requirements to be there to make sure that this system will operate and provide its purpose. So the difference between the sadaqah jariyah, so the sadaqah jariyah, al-waqf is a part of sadaqah jariyah. Al-waqf is a part of sadaqah jariyah. So the sadaqah jariyah includes waqf in it. But when we talk about the waqf in particular, there is other rules we talk about. So the first and the main thing to differentiate between sadaqah jariyah and waqf is the waqf. There is the main difference is a waqf that you hold the asset. It is requirement to have the asset, and then you can get benefit and spend the revenue or the income in whatever reason that you have specified in advance. But we have to have an asset, or we have to have something that it's going to last on long-term basis. So if you're gonna just give something that cannot last long enough, it cannot be a waqf. It can be a sadaqah jariyah, it can be sadaqah, but cannot be a waqf. So they say in Arabic, حبس مال يمكن الانتفاع به مع بقاء عينه. So you can use it while the entity, while the asset is there, and you are not taking away from the asset significantly. So this is the concept in Islam came with, that you have keep the asset, and all the revenue and income is coming from it. You spend it in the for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or in according to the terms that you have specified in this I would say system or waqf or contract. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned this, and Umar ibn al-Khattab في الحديث إن شئت حبست أصلها وتصدقت بها. وكان هذا, they say this is the first waqf in Islam according to many narrations. So to conclude, al-waqf does have couple, I would say, there is couple important points. If you know it, you'll be able to differentiate between al-waqf and sadaqah jariyah. First, there should be an asset that lasts long enough, or this is how it started. Of course, now we have different types of trust, maybe Brother Mirza will refer to, but I'm just referring to the essence or the where it started from. So you have an asset that is gonna last long enough. Then the asset itself, you transfer the asset from your ownership to the ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the second thing. So the ownership is no longer under your authority or anyone's authority other than those that were specified in the waqf deed or in the waqf صك. So you don't have the authority now in doing these transactions in this in waqf anymore. Then the other thing, that there is specific terms how to use the waqf or how to use this trust, and who is responsible of running this. For main things, it need to be specified and differentiate between a waqf, which doesn't have this complete system, clear system, and any sadaqah jariyah that you may just do it and leave it afterwards. Then the term of the last term, which is the wasiyah, and I understand that we will talk about this in a separate point. So inshallah, I will talk about later, inshallah. But these are the 4 terms are related, and inshallah we'll talk about today. I will stop here. And sorry for taking so long to answer this question.
Jazakallah khairan. You alluded to the wasiyah, and I just want to throw this question here, and then Mr. Mirza, feel free if you wanted to comment on Sheikh Yusri's or add to his point. If somebody is working on writing their will, is there any limitation on how much of their wealth can be put for a trust, or is that up to the person who owns the goods?
Please go ahead.
From an Islamic perspective, but also from a taxation perspective.
You want me to answer, or Sheikh Abdullah?
Go ahead, Brother Mirza.
Okay. Yeah, this is a very good question. And Sheikh Abdullah Mashwa referred to wasiyah. As I understand, we can put in our wills up to 1/3 of the net estate, which can be a will, which can be subject to a wasiyah, to people or to entities or to endowments or to waqf, or everybody else except the inheritors. So the inheritors are covered by the remaining 2/3. Now, this is only if we are writing a will and it is only upon death. However, as I understand, while we are living, we can, donate any amount we wish, as long as we treat our children equal and that they have enough to live on or to survive, and they are not becoming beggars. So giving to charity, there is almost no limit. For tax deduction purposes, here we can give up to 60% of our adjusted gross income, and we can deduct it. Now, if you want to do more, as one brother has done to the stocks, which I'm sure are very, very valuable, you can carry that deduction 5 years going forward. So let's say somebody donated $500,000 worth of stocks, and the income of that person is $100,000. He can deduct $60,000 a year going 5 years forward, and benefit from the almost full deduction. And so that's what I understand. So while we are living, we are free to give as much as we like, as long as our dependents are not begging. While we are writing our wills, we can will only up to 1/3. When I was writing my book, I was doing the research. I came across one hadith which really changed my perception, and that is that 1 dirham given during the lifetime while you're alive is better than the 100 given upon death. And that almost brought a message to me: why should we delay giving upon death? I mean, what death has to do with giving? Why don't we give while we're alive and see the results of it? We see Horizon growing. More people are getting scholarships. More students are getting education. Let's say Horizon, for some reason, did not do what it intended to do. You can redirect your contributions. You can give it to another entity who might do what you want them to do. So you see the results of your giving. And if you give only upon that, then really that joy is not there. So I'm a strong believer, and I make a case and argue that we should give while we're living. I will share with you one kind of interesting story. There was a person called Captain Levy in Philadelphia. He was, very rich, and he used to give out a lot. And one day, one person asked him, you are a sakhi, you give out so much, but then I see you still have so much. So what's your secret? He said, look, I shovel money out, God shovels it back, but his shovel is much bigger than my shovel.
Hisham, from a Canadian tax perspective, any comments there? Hisham Abadi.
Assalamu alaikum. Eid Mubarak to all the present scholars and welcome guests. So no, it's very similar to what Sheikh just said. The donations have the same rules. The trust is a common law. It's under common law, concept. So it's very similar to the English system, which is we're living in. I think it's similar to the US too. On the taxation part of it is exactly what Sheikh said. So it's up to 60%. There is no limit how much you give, but to take advantage, it depends on your income on the other side. So if you claim in $1 million, I believe you can deduct $500,000-$600,000 in donations. So it's proportional to your income. So, and usually you have 5 years. It's the same rules as the Sheikh said. In Canada, the same thing. You have 5 years to deduct the amount you give in the first year. So you can either in one shot or separate it as you like over 5 years. That's possible too. So in that aspect, I think there's very similar to the Canadian tax system. And the other thing, I just want to add one term to our Sheikh that speaks about waqf and sadaqah. Sheikhs, how about, I believe, waqf, and also in North Africa, we call them habus, or I think maybe it's the same concept. Waqf and habus is the same concept. Maybe you can elaborate on that. Assalamu alaikum.
Fadal Sheikh Usri.
Jazakallah khair, my brother. Yeah, and that's why I refer to the Arabic term in defining the waqf, habsu al-ayn. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, he used even the term حبس, حبس أصلها أو حبس أصلها, which is from there they use the term حبوس in some countries and some Gulf countries in Africa as well. They use it حبوس, which is exactly the waqf for endowment, the same term, and it's coming from the word حبس العين, which means that, let me give this example so that it is clear. For education, for example, we have Horizon now for education. If I give Horizon $10,000 for scholarships for students, money for scholarship for students to cover their education for until they graduate, for example, for one student or two students or whatever, I'm giving this money. This is sadaqah jariyah. This is Sadaqa Jariyah, I covered education for one student that inshallah will grow and teach others, and this is a Sadaqa Jariyah. I have I created a business, or I have my business, or I have a share, or I have a house. I said, this house, the rent of this house, and this house is the waqf now. I awqaftu hadha al-bayt, or this bayt, or this asset. This is a waqf for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and anything comes from this will go to Horizon to cover as a scholarship for education. This is a waqf, which means that even though there is a money will go from the house to Horizon to cover a scholarship, the difference here is that in the first example, I give money, which means that there is no asset there, which is a Sadaqa Jariyah. And the other example, I do have a house now, I do have an asset that will give every single month some money, or an annual income, or something that's going to come. And we expect that this house or this land will last long enough. So here is the difference. The money is coming, even though it will go for the same purpose, for the same organization, but it's absolutely different system. One is a waqf and one is the Sadaqa Jariyah, or hubus, or a trust, or endowment, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, here is the difference. There is an ongoing income is coming through an asset, or through an investment, which is the waqf. Sadaqa Jariyah is just an ended money, you have just paid it, even though it does have a long-term impact. Regarding the wasiyah, I wanted to so here is the slides. An endowment is an investment that provides endless support to charities causes in the future of our community. It's a gift. It's a promise without end to children and grandchildren, support of your community by people like you. Good. So I also wanted to refer to wasiyah, which is a very important term. I will speak about also the point that Brother Mirza just mentioned regarding whether to give while you are alive, or to give after as wasiyah. I will refer to this later. I understand there is a specific question for it, but I wanted to say that wasiyah in particular, this is a term, or this is a concept in Islam that we really needed in the West, and is not, most of us, we overlook this as Muslim communities in particular. And actually the term of wasiyah, it is different from, I wanted to differentiate between it and the waqf as well, that there is a term that you can make waqf. There is two different things. There is wasiyah up to a third, and there is waqf upon your death, or a waqf from your wasiyah. So there's two separate things. There is a general wasiyah, which is the general term of wasiyah, which means that you're going to say, in my will, 30% of my assets, or my money or belongings, will go to Dr. Hussam, for example. He's not my family member, and I'm giving him this money as a gift, as a hadiyah, or I will give it to the poor or the needy. This is called the wasiyah. This has nothing to do with waqf. This has nothing to do with waqf. Then we have another thing, which is al-waqf عند al-maut, or al-waqf from the wasiyah, which means that you're going to say, upon my death, 30% of my belongings, or my assets, or my money will go, or will be in that trust, or in this waqf. And here is the conditions of the waqf. Here is the beneficiaries, whether your family members, whether poor, whether needy, whether education, whatever it is. But if you do not specify this in the will, this will be like a general will. So we need to understand the differences between the will, which is may go to anything, and it is have so many general rules. And why I'm referring to this, because I say that this term is very important, and we overlook it in so many times, even though it does have a solution for so many problems. one of the issues that we have and we encounter, we know with the convert sisters, for example, or the convert brothers, they have converted to Islam. They sometimes, you know, they come and say, we feel bad. My father or my wife will not be able to get from my money according to Islam, according to some madhahib and all this kind of stuff. Even though you have in the wasiyah, in the general term, that you can give from this money to your spouse, to your father, to your mother, to your kids, to your family, to a friend, up to the third. So it does have general rules that does have so many solutions to issues here that we encounter in the West, according to the general rule. As soon as you move from the sadaqah, from the wasiyah, sorry, or the will, to the al-waqf عند الموت, which is going to be so another set of rules you need to make sure that is there. One of the main differences between a wasiyah and waqf, the wasiyah does have the limit of 30%, and the waqf does not have any limitations. The waqf does not have any limitations, as Brother Mirza said. As long as you are taking care of your family, yourself, your needs, there is no limitations in the waqf. Wasiyah, you have 30%, you have the thuluth, you cannot go anything beyond this. So that's why I wanted to refer to the will very quickly. And the other thing which is important, that upon the death, then you can make the waqf, which is with the rules, and you specify everything, then it will be considered a waqf, and we'll refer to a wasiyah only for the part that you will take a thuluth or 1/3. But all the rules of the waqf apply to this wasiyah, not the general rules of the wasiyah, because the wasiyah is general rules. It may be a gift, maybe so many general rules in there. I do see here some questions. How many people, Dr. Nuruddin, should I answer the questions right away, or we'll just
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So how many people are needed to set up a trust, and how many are needed as trustee? I would leave this maybe to the technical brothers, maybe Brother Hamid or Brother Mirza to answer it. I'm not sure even also the answers I know from the province here apply to Alberta or not. The other question, does Islam specify how a waqf should be managed? There is rules in there how to manage a waqf, not how to manage a waqf. There is a rule who should manage the waqf, and this is the trustee. And it is encouraged in Islam that you make as you expect for this to last long, you make general terms and rules and recommendations, so that you make sure that you will always have someone taking care of this trust or this waqf. The second thing, it is a term that there is a conditions or rules about the beneficiaries who should be benefited from this waqf, and this can be broad and can be very, very specific. And I will give, inshallah, some examples about this. In Al-Azhar, in Egypt back in the day, and this is very funny, back in the day in Al-Azhar, half of Cairo was waqf, land that is waqf upon the scholars, the scholars and the students of Al-Azhar. They eat there, they have their salaries, and they have everything they need as a students, or al-jami' or the mosque or the university, from this money. They don't need anything from government, they don't need anything from anyone, they're just absolutely covered. So the people, the community even started to come up with creative ideas. After having so many big waqf, people started to have very creative ideas, very tiny ideas, but it gives you this kind of subhanallah, the feeling how this system was one of the major assets that contributed in the nahda and the prosperity of this ummah. They had waqf called waqf al-zabadi, the yogurt, the endowment of the yogurt. So the students, the students of Al-Azhar, they go in the streets and there is specific waqf for there. They go and take this zabadi or yogurt during their day for free. It is sustainable. You go every day and take your yogurt for free. So they called it this way, waqf al-zabadi. So they had a problem, so that they go and take it, and sometimes they break the pots and the plates there, and they didn't have any kind of idea. Yani, so many things waste, so many waste in the terms of plates, and they fear that the waqf may be threatened. So another one came with another idea, that when you break your plate, you take this broken plate, you go to the waqf, they will take from you this broken plate, give you another one. So they used to come up with these creative ideas, very tiny things, but gives you this broad concept how everything was covered by this waqf, to make sure that this the Azhar, the scholars and the students and their life are sustainable and stable. And inshallah, maybe you can refer to this later as well, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. Brother Mirza, you wanted to expand a little bit on the concepts. I'll put here some of the slides here.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so as the slide says, we try to kind of explain what is an endowment. As my Sheikh Abdullah was talking about, it is really, to me, it is a perpetual trust which continues to provide perpetual support to a charitable cause. And it is investment we make today for the future. And it is a gift which keeps on giving. I mean, there's no end to it, as long as we make sure that, you know, it has assets and they are properly invested. I also give a different name to endowment, and that is to say generational fairness. So how I define that, let's say that today the economy is very good. We have lots of money. Stock market has been doing well. So we, as a generation, have enough money. So what we do is we create an endowment so that the next generation will have enough to keep a standard of living. And if the next generation has more, they can also create endowment for the next generation. So it provides generational fairness so that we can all enjoy having a certain standard of living. So the endowments, next slide, please. So the endowments are permanent, as Sheikh Abdullah was mentioning. The person who creates the endowment makes it is permanent. It cannot be sold or spent, and the principal is never touched. If there is no profit, we don't distribute any profit. If there is a profit, we use only that profit. Now, let's say that we make too much profit, 20% return, but we need only 10%. We can keep that 10% part of the endowment, and we call it pseudo endowment. That part can be withdrawn at a later date should there be need, but the principal cannot be touched. So the funds are invested and only the earnings are spent. Next, please. Now, as I was talking about, you know, in our lives, nothing remains forever. Everything has an end. But endowment is such a thing that it will hopefully live beyond our lives, beyond our generation. So when our family has already been provided for, then we need to start thinking about the people around us, people who are benefiting from Horizon education, people who are poor and the needy in the society. And you ask the question to yourself, is it better to leave a great society for a child, or a trust account. And I can assure you, if you leave a trust account for them, or money for them, they are not going to get MBA, but they will go and buy BMW. But if you leave them in a good society, hopefully they will be part of that good society and they will live as an example. So I say it is loving and giving that makes life worth living. Next, please. So endowments are really leaving a legacy of hope, giving hope to current generation and the future generation. And I'd give you the hadith here. If a man brings up and educates an orphan, he will be as near to paradise as fingers of a hand are near to each other. And indeed, a significant and very worthy call. So this is what our Sheikh Abdullah was trying to tell us. It is a sadaqah jariyah in the form of an endowment. So we can have a sadaqah jariyah, which would be, I will call it current use funds. So I give money to Horizon, say give a scholarship to poor people, so that will be for current use. Whereas if I take the same money and make an endowment, then you can only use the profits each year for current use, whereas the principal is remain invested. Yes, next please. So we talked about it, Wasiya, bequest through a will. We are, permitted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, to convey upon death up to 1/3. And other than the non-inheritors, this can be to a charity. This can be to create a waqf, as Sheikh Abdullah was mentioning, unless you specify that this 1/3 will go to create an endowment. It cannot go automatically. We can just say, some people might say, give 1/3 to Horizon, education. And that means when you receive the money, it is for the current use. But if you receive it as part of the endowment, then it will go into the part of the endowment where the principal is not touched except the profit. So as I mentioned earlier, you can give unlimited gifts during lifetime, but upon that, it will be only 1/3. Next, please. So this is one example, as what Sam was mentioning about the taxation. I just gave a rough example. If you contribute cash, let's say $25,000, depending upon your tax bracket, I'm using 30% as a general rule. You will save about $7,500 on the tax benefit. Next way to contribute will be appreciated asset. As one of the brother has given part of his company, most likely it's appreciated stock. He bought them, at a very low price, I'm sure. And now, if it is current value is 100,000, you contribute it, you will get tax deduction at the fair market value as of today. That means you get deduction at 100,000 level, which will save $30,000. So as you can see, you bought the stock, let's say $25,000. Now it is 100,000. You get tax benefit, which is 30,000. So best way of giving is really appreciated stocks. And we can make a campaign actually to people who own companies that they should donate their stock, part of the stock, after getting the appraisal to give the fair market value, so they can deduct that fair market value from their tax returns. Now, some of the owners of businesses, they will be worried that we don't want Horizon Education to be our partner and tell us, what to do and how to run the business. So the very simple answer is that you make them partner, but you ask Horizon to give you a proxy to vote on the stock. So you will have the right to vote the stock the way you wish, but whenever you declare dividend or you sell the company or you sell part of the company, they will get the benefit of it. So whenever there's a dividend, Horizon will receive the dividend in proportion to their ownership, but they will not interfere in the business because you have taken a power of attorney or proxy to hold their stock. The last item is pretty common here, charitable remainder trust. This is for people who are elderly. They need income, but they don't care about the principal. So we create this CRT where we say that you give me let's say I contribute $100,000. The IRS allows that I can get $5,000 income per year, and over time, and for giving that 100,000, I get deduction for almost $60,000, depending upon the age and how long they think that one is going to live. And after that, the charity will receive the money. So that is the way it sort of works. So let's say that I have no need for the money, but I just need income. So I contribute $100,000 to CRT. It's a kind of special trust, which can be a waqf, which will give me $5,000 income by contract for life. And when I die, it will give the money to a charity, and that can be the endowment, that can be waqf, or it could be Horizon Education. And so it is a way to get income without worrying about what to do with the principal or where to invest it. Next, please. So I always request my brothers and sisters that, as Quran tells us, and Prophet ﷺ has told us, the best good deed is the one which is done properly. So we should not delay it. And in other words, in Surah Al-Baqarah, we say, race to do good deeds. And this is, as I understand, is one way that we can be envious of the other people in doing good. So we are encouraged to do good and rush to do good. If any do good, good will accrue to them therefrom, and they will be secure from the terror that day. Next, please. So leaving a legacy, I often tell my successful people that success is not a success without a successor. So if we ensure that our next generation is going to have a decent standard of living, as well as also they are going to have good Islamic education, good education otherwise, and then we want to make sure that our legacy continues and there is a continuation of what we have. And of course, as we know, Prophet ﷺ has told us, let's plant dates, palm tree, even though we who plant them will never eat them. It's also another way of saying is that if the Rosh Qiyamah comes and we were about to plant a tree, we are encouraged to go ahead and plant it anyway. Another chance, and that is, but those who believe and work deeds of righteousness and believe in the revelation sent down to Prophet ﷺ, for it is the truth from their Lord, He will remove from them their ills and improve their condition. Next, please. And you can read, it's basically emphasizing the companion of God promise of truth which was made to them in this life. And then lastly, I always encourage I usually say the good news is that all the money which we need to create an endowment is available, except for the fact that it is in your pocket. So we have to get it out of your pocket, then we can create a community endowment. And as Sheikh Abdullah said, the endowments are created for a number of things. I was very excited to see that there is one for Laban and one for the plates, and you can have for the orphans. You can have how to clean the streets, how to help the poor, how to help the needy, how to run a hospital, how to have a school, you just think of it. There's no limit for which you can create an endowment, and you can create many of them. You don't have to just limit it to one.
Jazakallah khairan. So we learned quite a bit from an Islamic perspective, from a taxation perspective. I like for us to, and I want to draw also the rest of the attendees. We have Imam Johari, we have Dr. Hussein Amiri with us. I think he's still here. To reflect on how this concept is applied in the modern institution, both business or nonprofit. As we are reminded, I was reading Jim Collin in his book, Good to Great, and he was talking about a friend of his who is an alumni of Harvard, and he kept donating to Harvard. Harvard had, at that time, $50 billion trust. And he said, I feel like every year I donate money that I'm bringing the sand to the beach. But despite that, there's something that attracts people to certain organization. And so there's work to be done by our institutions to deserve an investment, such investment on us. But how modern Waqf institution operate? If anybody could give us some examples and just
yeah, you gave the example of Harvard University. Their trust is now, or endowment is now, 40 billion. It pays 35% of the operational expenses of Harvard University. And if it was not so, the tuition fee would be much higher than what it is today. You also mentioned about the Makkah complex. As you know, that is a complex of 7 towers in Makkah, which is managed by the Saudi government. It is part of the King Abdulaziz endowment, and it's huge complex. It is providing income for different charitable purposes. So the Waqf concept is great. I've sent you an article about Yale University, and I think maybe if I can summarize that example to you, it is very interesting. Yale graduates were meeting at 25th anniversary of their graduation, and there were like 10 people, and they said, when we meet at 50th anniversary, we should do something very big for Yale. And the other person said, oh, okay, tell us what you have in mind. He said, we should collect some money, and we know somebody in New York who does good investments. Give it to them, give it to him, and he will do a good job. When you come back after 25 years, we should make that as a gift. So they went around, they collected $75,000 from 10 people. Somebody gave 5, somebody gave 10,000, and they called this person in New York and gave it to him. He said, how long do I have to invest this money? They said 25 years. And he said, how much risk I can take? They said unlimited, because we can afford to lose $75,000. So this person, he went on to invest money for 25 years. And there was, in between, Yale had some problems, and they asked them to give us some money. He said, no, it's for 25 years. So after 25 years, when they met at 50th anniversary, they called this person, and he said, well, let me crack my computer. So he cracked his computer, and he said, I have $90 million for you. This is the New York Times article. I emailed it to you, the 2-page. And really, that brings the message home that endowments do work. So what you need to do is to invest for long term and take risk with this money, because there's no one to ask. See, the biggest thing the fund manager has to worry about is liquidity. And in case of endowments, there is no liquidity requirement. There's no one going to ask to give you the principal. So you can invest 100% of the money for long term. And as you know, if something is invested for long term, over time, it works out. Stock market goes up, it comes down. Real estate goes up, it comes down. So that's example. So this is the way the endowments work, and they are, now your question would be, why aren't we doing it? I think what you have done, Brother Nuruddin, in this seminar is what we need to do: educate ourselves, motivate ourselves, and encourage people to contribute. Because a lot of people, they say, well, why should I give money to endowment? Because money just sits there. Well, brother, that's the purpose of it. If it sits there and is properly invested, you benefit from the return of it. Therefore, it lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. Endowments do. And Imam Jahari knows the work which we have done for the last 32 years. Alhamdulillah, starting in 86 from nothing, we have created endowment of several $100 million. And the budget of many organizations is funded by the endowment. And I take, or my group, we take, pride in creating such a thing. And now we are trying to do the same thing for our family. We are contributing into a foundation and using only the profits of the foundation to fund different charitable activities. So I think we need to motivate people to contribute to endowments and create one and properly invest it so that we can then use for charitable purposes. This is the only way we can run our activities in perpetuity. It is perpetual. Just imagine if you don't have endowments, you start a school, then you run out of money, then you don't have a school. You cannot tell the teachers, I'm sorry, Maslama. Or you go to Africa, establish a clinic, and after 2 years, you tell, I'm sorry, I don't have money, So you need to have endowment to support such activities. That's the only way we can have permanency.
Jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Yusri, I understand you have some humble experience in Halifax establishment such trusts. Could you speak to us about your own personal experience there?
Yes, I had something in mind I wanted to say.
Please.
Before going to that, about the how to answer the question I see here. Talking about our current affairs in the society that we live in, how can we make this happen? And generally speaking, first of all, as Brother Mirza said, the first point is education, to educate ourselves about this kind of system that does exist in the community. And also, it does have this rooted in our Islam and our Deen. This is the first thing. The second thing, which I believe this is the key in the huge impact of this system. The key of the huge impact of this system, other than Sadaqah Jariyah, other than all other forms of charity, endowment and trust does have huge and unique impact throughout the history of the Ummah. I think the key thing there is the planning. The endowment is a system that requires you to put efforts in planning for this waqf. Whether you're going to do this right now while you are alive, as Brother Mirza said and encouraged, or you're going to do this later. But the point is, the difference is that in the waqf, you have very certain and specific rules. Who's going to do what, where, and when, and how, and everything is planned and written. And I think this is the key in this huge impact that you see in the endowment and in the waqf. Exactly like if you're going to speak about our current life right now, you know that how we do financial planning for ourselves, those that are doing the financial planning for retirement, they do financial planning for RESP or RSP and all these things that we have in Canada for education purposes, for retirement plans, for all this kind of stuff. They spend so much time with advisors and experts to do this planning for their life, for their retirement. If we do so for the hereafter and learn how to do this, then you're going to see this huge impact. And those, they overlook this and they just say, leave things to go like this. Usually the result, they waste so many opportunities. So this is the second point, which is the planning in the waqf is the key in the success and the huge impact that you see upon communities, upon the ummah. The other thing is that you do the waqf in your while you are alive, and you take care of it until it reaches a point that it is just will go by its own. Many people actually will be honored to serve it. So when you die, then you left behind not thousands of dollars will be spent here and there. You left behind a live system and a live project that many people would love to relate to and take care of. This, if you invest your time and your efforts in planning right now for it, and in investing your time in taking care of it and making sure that it does have this complete system. The fourth point, which is for me also is important for us to try to implement this in smaller scales. In a smaller scale, if we can do this, if we have now in the community so many brothers and sisters, just implement this general concept of the trust in a smaller scale. When we have this spread in the community, then I believe we will be able to see very soon people, they have this idea of creating this huge trust for organizations and Muslim charities and Muslim mosques, Muslim schools, and all this kind of stuff. But we need to practice this on our own as well, on a smaller scale. And I'm providing very practical examples right now from my personal experience and from experience with investors and brothers I have worked with. And to give you an example, even though if you do not have the legislations or I would say the waqf is not even incorporated within the constitution of the country that you live in, there is always a way to implement this waqf. So I have seen, and I've been working with group of brothers, they have done an amazing implementation of the waqf back in Egypt, that they had this company that it does worth millions of dollars. They just said, you know what, we have our shares, I have 10%, you have 10%, and you have 10%. You know, now we're gonna have another 10%. I will give 1% of my share, and you're gonna give 1% of your shares, and then we're gonna have 15% of the shares of this company is going to be the profit of this company of the 15% will be spent in this area of Amal al-Khair. Who is responsible? Abdullah is the most experienced in this, or does have connections in that. So Abdullah will be the main person responsible of spending the 15% income from the company. Has nothing to do with all the complications of the trust and the endowment. It is just, if you believe in the idea, you believe in the system, and you can implement it in your own company, you just say 10% of my profit from this company is going is waqf fi sabilillah. As soon as you say this with your tongue, this is a waqf now. Then you need just to work on how you make sure that when you pass away, that someone will take care of that. But we need to practice this in this level. All of us, we do have businesses running here and running there, or you have something that you know here or know there, or we do have assets even. And this is the second thing. So the first thing is your company, or any company, you can have part of it. Some shares, you make it in your will, you make it in a trust, whatever the idea is. But the point is, part of it, you make it waqf fi sabilillah. You don't have to specify, and this is another thing. Some people, they get confused. You don't have to specify this organization or the other. If you're not comfortable now doing this, just do it, and then you figure out where you're gonna put the money. Just say, I will make it in education or in da'wah or in Islam or whatever you want to say. Then when you will see at the end of the year you have $15,000 you need to spend, you will then figure out where you're gonna spend that. But because the time and pass and flies, we don't put this planning. We we don't do anything. So the first point, you need to take a step. Just take the step. Have a couple % of your company or any company you have, fi sabilillah, then you're gonna figure it out. The second thing, the assets. All of us, we have assets. You can say, you know, I have this house, or I have this an apartment, or I have this land. This is the waqf fi sabilillah. As simple as that. It doesn't have to have an income coming right now. You never know what's going to happen in future. Just say this house, the rental property, this rental property is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It gives me 5,000 a month. This is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is waqf. This is a waqf now. So this is another concept and a practical example that all of us can just do it. Okay. This is the second idea. The third idea I wanted to refer to, which is the passive, I would say the passive waqf, even that you don't have a rental property and you don't have a company. You don't have a rental property and you don't have a company, but you may have an asset, you know, that it does not generate income, and you may even make this as a waqf. You never know what's going to happen in future as well. So you have land 50 kilometers outside the country, outside the city. You know, you have bought it for $5,000 20 years ago, or somehow like this. And this is the one thing that you think you can just make it for sabilillah. You can just make this as a trust or a waqf. And from the history that we live in right now, that we saw significant waqf that was just for piece of land that did not worth anything back to 30 and 40 years ago. So I do have an example that I want to share with you, called the waqf of Aisha al-Murshid in Saudi Arabia. She was in a city of Ar-Ras, city of the Ras. In 1213 Hijri calendar, she had a piece of land. All the money that she got just to bought a piece of land kind of 40 kilometers outside of the city, doesn't worth anything back at that time. She just bought it and said, this is all I have. I don't have kids. I don't have family. This is waqf fi sabilillah. And she just appointed a doctor or a physician to take care of this. When she passed away, and she wrote this in his will. And the waqf remained passive for over 150 years. Remain passive from a person to a person. He just made sure that in his will that he says there is a waqf I was responsible of. This is the information and this is the deed. After 150 years, this piece of land is in the middle of the city. A professor in the university just got in the chain, and the deed came to him as to be responsible of this waqf and as a trustee of the waqf. And then he sold this for 150 million riyal Saudi. 150 million riyal Saudi. And now it does own so many things that is just generating thousands and thousands of dollars every single month for tahfidh al-Quran and for so many other things. So this is also a passive waqf that you can do, and you just make sure that you protect it and plan for it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the significance in the waqf. Al-waqf, with the planning, with everything, there is something is your niyyah, and something is the acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the barakah. Subhanallah, you see things like this, and this how significant it became down the road with no expectations, you just say this is the barakah and acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He looks to your niyyah and to you have been this truthful in giving this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you can just goes on and on these kind of examples, you will never end. You know, there is two rooms in Mecca for a Pakistani Haji. His name was Rahim. Haji Rahim, Pakistani, from Pakistan. He just owned 2 rooms in Mecca. In 1307, he just made this as a waqf, fi sabilillah. Now they say that this waqf owns now 11 towers in Mecca. 5 of them, they just overlook overlook the Kaaba, and now the total amount is $450 million. $450 million, the total amount of the 2 rooms in 140 years. The brother passed away 140 years ago, and the endowment now and the waqf $450 million. So this is not planning, this is nothing. This is of course taking the initiative, being practical, doing whatever in your hand, with putting your trust in people and putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of it, and you will then see this kind of significant growth that you will reap, inshallah, in the hereafter. I wanted to say this I just wanted to say that we don't have excuse. We don't have an excuse. If you have a company, you can have shares of this company for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't have to say, I don't have organizations. No, just make it for the sabilillah, and then you're going to figure it out later on which organization you want to give. It will even keep it general. If you have a rental property, just make one of these rental property or a percentage of this waqf fi sabilillah. If you do not, just have any piece of land here or there fi sabilillah and make it a waqf. If you have the means and the waqt and the time to create a trust and to take care of all this kind of system that it does exist in the country and the complications of CRN, all this stuff, you go for it. But just we need to practice. You need to practice this system, and this is exactly what we have done here in Halifax. I have been discussing with Brother Hussam that we have been going here and there and asking about the regulations with the mosque and with the school, and how we're going to make this endowment, how we're going to make this trust, and figuring out the foundation and the support group. And it took so much time, and we did have the opportunity with the money, alhamdulillah, almost $600,000 or $700,000 to make the endowment. We said, let's do this kind of passive investment or passive waqf until we figure out our ways. When we figure out, we're gonna then see how can we transfer this and how can we make sure that we are doing this right according to the rules and the regulations. And we did have this rental property that is just providing us money every single month, and we take this money for the mosque and take this money for the school, and that's it. This is a passive way of doing this kind of waqf for the masjid or waqf for an entity. Not the trust through the trust itself, but through another way, while we are working actively in building this trust and forming this entity that inshallah within a couple of weeks inshallah should be ready. But this is our experience now, what we have done now. The other experience that we have, that for organizations, specifically for organizations, that you go for companies that they are successful in the region that you live in. So for example, we are in Halifax. We have couple investors, couple businessmen here. They are doing very good, mashallah. They have very good, vibrant companies, and they are very good and managing it very well and doing so much very good. So they do have the option to give you as an organization or fi sabilillah part of their shares, or even, and which is another experience I had before, that you can invest in that. So a brother, he's a very talented and he does have a very good company. You can buy from him. Exactly like I will gonna come and buy your company. I will not buy your company. I will just buy shares in your company. And your service for me is just you are running the company and you are trusted and you're running your money. I'm just giving you some money, you take it and you invest it again in the company, do another business, do anything. But the successful organizations around the community, you can invest in buying shares in these companies and own this money or own these shares that will generate sustainable income for you. And it is a form also of a waqf, which is another experience that we have, and it's very successful. Because anyways, you are running your company and I'm giving you this cash, buying from you this percentage in your company on shares, and you are running your company anyways, and you took the money to open another business or to open another initiative or to invest it back in the company. The third piece also that we had experience with, that is part of the waqf, or you can call it, having business activities, which is another thing that احنا في المسجد, I came here that we did have zero sustainable income. Our income is almost zero. We are just 100% dependent upon the donations. So if there is no donations, if there is issues in the board, if there is issue or drama, here or there, there is no money coming in, and the mosque is almost closed for 2 or 3 years. Right now, in 3 years' time, we have, alhamdulillah, over, I would say, 80% of our operational cost for the whole year is covered absolutely by business activities and trust and endowments and here and there through these ideas. Now 80 or 85% of our annual expenses that actually is double now from before, it is absolutely covered by business activities. What we earn now, donations, we grow. We hire more brothers, we open new activities, we do new services, we do so many other things. We now open another masjid in Antigonish, and we plan for another mosque in another city. Why? We won't be able to reach that level until we cover ourselves from the endowment, the waqf, the business activities that we are carrying on right now, and which give us this opportunity to grow and to grow rapidly. The conclusion I wanted to say that there is so many examples and forms of waqf apply to any case, whether you are an organization or a masjid, a school, a person has a company, have your own business, have a piece of land worth anything, have rental property. There is so many ideas. We need to educate ourselves, believe in the system, and just take a practical step, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open gates for us.
Jazakallah khairan, ahsant, Sheikh Yusri. I wanted for us to spend the last 25 minutes we have to open it up for the audience with comment and questions. And so please, anybody who have a question or comment to our speakers, feel free. I'm gonna just check what we have here on the chat. So I think, Mustafa, we touched base your question about why people are not doing it. I guess just we need to take baby steps and get into it.
Some are doing it, alhamdulillah.
Some people are doing it, yeah. And we've seen something at a big scope with Brother Mirza and the work they've done over the last 30 years. There's a lot of tax benefits that one should not just let go wasted, that one could benefit from, especially when you have organizations that are charitable organizations. Please let us know if you wanted to comment. The floor is open.
I was actually going to ask a question to the speakers here. Is it possible to have a scheme in which there is a trust? Like I think I liked very much the scheme that Mr. Mirza spoke about. But just to elaborate that, can you have a scheme in which a trust is set up so that some part of it can go, like for example, during my retirement, and the other can go to a charity, and vice versa, right? So that there's some kind of flexibility. Or is a trust, once it's set up, it's set up, it's not movable, it's not changeable from an Islamic perspective?
Yeah, but there's I would probably set up two separate trusts. One focus on your retirement and the one focus for charitable purposes, so that there's no confusion, because one goes for retirement eventually will be inherited by your children. And the one which go for the Islamic work, it is for waqf, it's fi sabilillah,
Okay.
so there's no confusion. But it can be done. I think one of the topic where Dr. Nuruddin had mentioned how to set up a personal trust. So far, we have talked about, or we emphasized setting up a trust for the community and for the benefit of the community for a specific purpose. I just want to touch on that each one of us who have, let's say, well-to-do, can set up their own family foundations. And that is to perpetuate the legacy of that family. So in our particular case, we have our own private family foundation, and in which our children are board members along with me and my wife. And we basically are, putting money into that foundation. And my children and ourselves, we have agreed on 4 priorities for the family. One of them is helping the poor and the needy. The other one is social justice. Then the next one is scholarship and education, and so on and so forth. So we are committed to fund those activities. And this also helps to, as Sheikh Abdullah was saying, that if you don't know what to do and you can figure out later, that is our way of putting the money, getting the tax reduction, saving on the taxes, putting the money into private foundation, which we control, and then we can contribute to any causes we wish. So it is kind of in between that stuff. I wonder, Sam, if I answer your question.
You did. No, thank you. That is very solid. I appreciate that a lot. The question that I was asking to you, sir, and also to Mr. Yusri, Sheikh Yusri, you spoke to business activities. Does this mean the trust can employ people, like, can, for example, employ an investment manager or employ some kind of, Go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
absolutely. Endowment is a separate entity which has these assets, which has to be professionally managed. And you can invest in companies. Our endowment, we have investment in about 10 different companies, starting from high tech to ski resorts, to real estate. And our largest investment is in poultry operation. We provide halal chicken. So we actually provide 2% of US consumption of chicken.
MashaAllah.
And much of it is sold to anyone who wants, but only 15% or so is sold as halal. And the part of the income from these businesses, it goes to the endowment. And we have families who have dedicated part of their income to go for charitable causes. So it's said it differently. If we make money for a family, they are very encouraged to give sadaqah.
I
Yes.
agree.
MashaAllah.
Can we do a fundraising for an endowment? This is a question that I just saw on the chat. I like it very much, but is that allowed?
Yeah, absolutely, because endowments are created by donors. And the only distinction is, as Sheikh Abdullah has made, that their niyyah has to be that it is for endowment. So when endowment is raising money, the donor has to give money to the endowment, either the purpose which has already been set, or they can have a sub-endowment for a purpose that donor may have in mind. So you can have one big endowment with sub-endowments for different purposes. One can be feeding the hungry, one can be for scholarship, one can be buying books, one can be giving laban to students.
Yes. I would like to add one thing, my brothers.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, which is also another very interesting topic, that this creativity that they had back in the day, we need to have also a different way of to create our own ideas. For example, one of the big waqf that you can do right now is not about just a masjid and a school. There is so many other things and so many other ideas the community needs, and we can just invest in this. For example, if you make an endowment to fund an institution to create or to build a curriculum for Islamic schools, to hire employees and to hire researchers and to hire experts and to create an Islamic curriculum for Islamic schools, for elementary schools. This is your goal in life. And you create something that is really funded properly, and you hire professors and experts from different areas to build this curriculum for daycares, for manhaj tazkiyah, or for manhaj for primary, elementary, or whatever, or for the high school, or for weekend school. This is something, the impact of this upon a community, upon years to come, generations to come, is huge. So the idea is we don't want to limit ourselves when we think about endowment. We are talking about a school or a masjid or a well in Africa for water, or a small business that's going to generate some money. So the beneficiaries or the idea is, well, we need to be creative even in the area of how we're going to use this money. Another example, a simple, I would say, website, or not a simple idea of a website or an application that does have huge impact upon people, upon community, upon youth. It is a form of waqf that can have a huge impact upon people, upon communities, upon youth, and is a form of waqf. You fund, from the waqf, you fund creation of application for youth, connection for any of the IT using the technology or something like this. And this is your waqf, that you created a tool for new Muslims, for example, to learn something in da'wah or doing da'wah activity through technology. So also the idea of the waqf, we need also to be creative how we're going to use the money and what is really needed. This will come when you take the initiative and start having money coming in. Then you will, your mind will start to, the ideas this will trigger ideas, and your eyes will start to identify things around you. When you have the money sitting and you are actually worried, what I'm going to do with this? It is not comes late. Some brothers, they say, you know what, when I see something that is worth it, inshallah, I will think about the endowment. I say to you, do it the other way around. Just do it. Just do it. And when you have the money sitting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open the gates for you, and you will have to do some research to come up with ideas and with creative ideas how to use this money and which project that you will fund, like the Zabadi, like the Fukhar, like whatever, like the weather, whatever you want to call it, inshallah.
Very good. Any other questions, comments from the panelists or from the audience?
I actually am going to ask a difficult question, but I mean, like, mashallah, brother, yeah, Mirza, you guys are way on your up front there. Is there any way we can ask for help? Like for example, let's say we started getting some money here and there. Can we reach out for help, asking how can we set it up and how can we start investing in that, or is that too much to ask?
No, absolutely. My services are free, and
Jazakallah khair.
any experience we have, I will be very happy to share and direct and redirect. Whatever help you need is available.
And
And this is the only way we can, grow and help each other. Let me share with you, many of us, we came here in 70s, 80s, and, we are always kind of like going back home and this and that. But now I feel that we need to establish ourselves as a community, and we are here to stay, and this is the place, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us here. We have to make the best use of it. So we need to start thinking, how can we stabilize and establish our community? And we can do that only if we're going to help each other.
Jazakumullah khair.
I'm sure, I'm sorry that what I'm going to talk about, you cannot invest from Canada. We have a Mana Mutual Fund, which is Islamically investing. I'm chairman of the board. And unfortunately, about 10 years ago, Canada forbade that you cannot invest in the US mutual fund. Otherwise, before that, you are able to do it. So this fund we started in '86 for $100,000. Now it sits at $4.5 billion, and it has become the largest Islamic fund in the world.
Bismillah, mashallah.
And it's all, of course, it's your money. And we have investment in it. That investment is doing very well. And it's unfortunately, the Canadian brothers and sisters cannot invest in it. But you have similar, funds available in Canada. But those opportunities are available. Now, if someone wants to set up a fund in Canada, we'll be very happy to offer, help in that. Abdullah Adris, my buddy in Toronto, I spoke in Islamic Canada, Islamic Canada, and they want to, establish one fund there. I'm working with them, helping them, giving them suggestions and ideas to the extent that we can provide you management help, where to invest, how to invest, but you will have to invest in the Canadian stock market. But we can help to analyze and pick the stocks for you. So there are all kinds of help is available because, that is, inshallah, that will be my sadaqah jariyah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts it.
Ameen ya Rabb. Ameen ya Rabb.
Ameen.
Jazakallah khair. All right. I know this is very late in Sheikh Abdullah's zone of the word. Jazakallah khairan for being with us and for generously donating your time here to bring awareness on this important topic. Everything runs with funds and with money, and it's important to mind that in order for us to do what we have to do. And I really love the example that Sheikh Abdullah said about examples of things that you could do with the fund, where we're always trying to get people's time donated to do great work. It doesn't work. You need really to get dedicated people who are paid to do important work, like coming up with an Islamic curriculum for K to 12. You will be surprised. I've traveled North America, US, and Canada, and most schools have no idea what they're teaching. They just buy textbook and teach from them. They don't have a philosophy. They don't have a foundation for what they're teaching. And if they do, they borrow this from somebody and they don't understand the context of that curriculum that they borrowed. And so these are areas that require investment. They're not buildings that you could see, a mosque or a school or such, but they are building people on a strong foundation. So Jazakumullah khairan again for this bit of education. Inshallah, we would love to have a part 2 of this conversation, inshallah, in the near future. And thank you again, and Eid Mubarak, and stay safe, everybody, because COVID-19 is still around in different forms and mutations. So may Allah relieve this pandemic, inshallah. But it will happen with everybody's help and efforts and following the safety measures.
Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Very nice being with you. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah khairan.
I
Barakallah.
think we should do a follow-up meeting after a year from now, inshallah, and see where we are, inshallah.
There you go.
Yeah, inshallah. And Dr. Nuruddin, if you want to send someone to visit with us, we can sit down and share all what we have done with them. So Brother Hassan will be happy.
Me too as well, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Barakallah.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
It will be a nice trip to Halifax, then down south.
Inshallah.
Allah.
Inshallah.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Or you all move to Halifax, inshallah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
الله
Barakallah
يحفظكم
Assalamu alaikum.
يحفظكم الله.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. سبحان ربك رب العزه عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم.
السلام عليكم.